under 53 case. Even on the out-of-town roundabouts and service stations, we get people watching. This is the Giro d'Italia. This is the pink race. This is a race that unifies a nation and, of course, tells the story of its history. Italy's still a young nation, 154 years old. Italian riders out there here. Bandiera, that classics rider we were telling you about. Not used to riding the Grand Tours, but they're enjoying themselves. Listening on in the race radios. How do you keep people motivated in a break over the radio, Sean? It must be a very, very hard job.
Very, very difficult, and you have to tell a lot of lies to keep them motivated. And there is a lot that goes on, especially, you know, in the end of the stage. And when you talk about the advantage, for example, you really can't, you know, you can't really con the riders in that way. you can't. You have to give them the correct time, because we see the blackboard is still out there in existence. So, you know, you just. But the advantage for the moment, I think, that will be helping the riders here to keep on and keep a bit of motivation, because they have quite a big advantage. So they're going to stay out in front. But do they really want to stay out in front here? You know, that long? They know that, I think, the time is limited. But when you look at, you know, that 6.5 minutes on advantage with around 50 kilometres to go, it is a great advantage. But again, with only 4 riders when they really turn it on. But back in the bunch, it seems to be, I think there's a little bit of, you know, tactics being played. Who's going to take up the chase? At the moment, we don't see Ulrika Greenedge, you know, riding on the front at all. Are they just, you know, bluffing a bit and making the other teams do the work at the moment?
Inside 5 minutes. Somebody obviously is doing a bit of work here. The gap is coming down. Everybody back in formation again. Leaders being looked after. There's the Japanese champion's jersey of Arashiro on the left-hand side, in the form of his life at the minute. Rada Hejdahl, former winner of the Giro d'Italia. He's been racing in and around Italy for quite a while now, in and around the world, in fact, in his Garmin jersey. Canadian rider. Has one stage win at the Giro d'Italia, 7 pro victories, and of course has been a pro for just a little longer than a decade. The man who's been cycling, following cycling for a long time, is renowned Australian journalist Rupert Guinness. And Rupert has written in, Sean, with a question for you. We're riding up to Montecassino today, and an area very much well known for its significance in world history. Just wants to know, does Rupert, Sean, as a rider riding in these areas, do you get any time in and around the race to take in the history of where you're riding?
Well, it's the individuals. Some guys would be very much into that, and other riders would have no idea whatsoever. Yes, it depends on the rider, and a lot of the riders, you know, would have a great interest in the place they go, and they would, you know, they would be checking it out before they get to the race. During the race, they'd be, you know, checking the local history. So it's all about the individual. And, you know, when you talk to some of the riders, even the simplest thing of, I suppose, going back into bike racing and going back into the history of bike racing, the riders who have won so many Tour of Italy's and the famous names down in Italy, some of the riders have no idea about these guys. It's amazing. So it's all about, yes, what the individuals, each individual is interested in.
Whether history is your thing or not, I guess. Bernie Eisel up to the front. Certainly a name of his own in the modern pro peloton anyway. Extremely well respected. A few riders saw the no entry sign there and decided to go all the way around. A little bizarre. Oh, and we're seeing why, in fact, because there are 2 carriageways. Oh, it's not one of those really, really long ones. The next exits are out 10 miles down the road or something. Chance to rectify it at the next roundabout. Of course, the flag was up, and again, perhaps a little late. There's one man who saw exactly where we were going. And again, at this moment, Peloton perhaps could be forgiven for being a little sleepy at the back here, Sean.
Yes, very much so. I think there's a lot of riders. Concentration is the minimum at the moment, and that's the time as well where you can see some crashes occurring, because the riders are just riding along. They're not focused at all on what they're doing, and if there's, you know, something a sudden slowdown in the middle of the peloton or down towards the rear, we could see him, you know, just getting tangled together, crashing together. So you have to, at this time, you have to say to yourself, okay, I have to, keep focused here, because when you fall, you crash at this point. As you're going very slow, it doesn't mean you're not going to have any damage or do any injury.
Front wheel change required there, just while Sean was explaining that to you. 2:13, Julian Arredondo, the leader of the Trek Factory Racing team, the Colombian who we were talking about not too far ago. And again, there's not too much urgency in things at the minute. Czech really just staying up at the front. Not too many riders gone to escort the man back. They're just knocking it off ever so slightly. One of the few uphill drags today. It's a relatively flat profile all the way through today. Lots of Italian flags around the route. Now, touching on the history of Brendan Gallagher as well, just saying that we should remember Ypres and Ypres if you're a Flemish speaker during the Tour de France this year. Another huge anniversary, 100 years coming up. And again, we saw that a little in Ghent-Wevelgem in the classics during spring. We'll pass through there on the border between Belgium and France in July. That's after we've been to Yorkshire, of course. Michele Scarponi going for a ride on the left-hand side. Just taking a few of his Astana teammates with him. Fabio Aru, the fellow climber, was one of them. Scarponi from the Marche on the east of Italy. At the same height as Tuscany is. Just on the east coast. Very similar in geography to Tuscany as well. So Trek still riding up there, still Bernie Eisel's up there, and still Sky continue to puzzle us. Why are they riding? Well, one thing is certain, we'll certainly know after the stage anyway. Hopefully we'll know before then, because we'll see an image of their plans for the day. Always the possibility that some politicking is going on behind the scenes, of course, as well. Teams tend to help each other out. We saw the goodwill dished out with certain riders and certain teams allowed to draft behind certain cars going into stage 4 and that finale. Organisers enjoying the day. And it is that sort of day at the minute. We're waiting for things to happen. Transitional stages of the Giro d'Italia. And stages that respect the geography of Italy and the inclusive nature of the race. But everybody knows that the Dolomites is what it's about this year, as it invariably is. Time trial is going to be interesting from Barbaresco to Barolo. Andre Zeitz coming to the front for Astana as well. And again, a few more spots of rain. Thankfully, the roads had dried out a little. It doesn't look a great view going forward, does it, Sean?
Well, you can see the terrain here for the bunch and for the riders in the front. It's one of these transition days, big time, and the long stages, and we've talked about that many times during the Tour of France, Tour of Italy, Tour of Spain especially, and about having shorter stages. We have more aggressive racing, and we've seen yesterday and today where with the long days, when you have mostly headwind, you can see there's a little bit of wind there, and it is a headwind at the moment, and that's the reason the bunch is just rolling along here. And we can see Trek Factory Race, and they're starting to roll on the front a bit, and of course they have a man, Arredondo, who can do something in the stage finish today, because we see him yesterday, so they're hoping that he can be as competitive as he was yesterday.
We've talked up the Polish chances. Let's go and find out exactly why they'll be targeting this stage today.
Yeah, I'm feel good, and but I think some weight today is not for me climb, but I'm really strong, and I wait for the last week. I'm also, it's really important for the Polish people, then watching this climb, because it's really important for the Polish nationality, because a lot of Polish people dead there, and normally I'm really happy when I win there, but we try to not lose so much time, and I want to the best.
Rafał Majka, who we were talking about half an hour back, going for that best young rider's jersey overall. Of course, he'll be going for pink as well, but more realistic option is to be the best young rider in the race for him. We've had a faller. Looks to be one of the Europe car riders. Angelo Tulik, I think it is. Taking a bit of skin off, and it looks as though he's taking a bit of tarmac with him as well. They've had a big job to do, the medics, in the last few days. We saw Mikel Landa coming back with him to have a visit to the doctor. Again, they have to be skilled not only in medicine, but in practicing it from the window of a car as well.
Yes, well, we see so often we see that on the road doing the cleaning of the wounds, and they have a lot of time there to do it today. You know, at this moment, with 46 kilometers to go, you know, you could have a race where to be full on at this point, but it's certainly not the case, and it has never been the case today. So he's just going to stay with the doctor's car, hang out here as long as possible, and get his wounds seen to.
We're not getting too many time checks here, unfortunately. I'm not sure whether it's a transponder problem, but our spies have been out there talking to race radio. They say the gap is down to around 4 minutes now. Still Sky have that presence of Bernie Eisel, Danilo Hondo riding right in the front for Trek Factory Racing, so they obviously have their own reasons as well. Certainly a few riders who would like to attack this today. Rafał Majka there just telling us how important it was for the Polish public watching at home on television. Cycling big in Poland at the moment, very much as it's grown recently too in the United Kingdom, and as you were saying, Sean, as well earlier in the race, the Republic of Ireland. Lots of good Polish cyclists. We've talked about Michał Kwiatkowski being the early season revelation. We have the likes of Przemysław Niemiec, who's been around for a while, but has been starting to get his chances here, and that young Rafał Majka. Finally, a time check, 3 minutes and 40. So our spies had good information, more or less, thankfully.
And of course we have the Tour of Poland the last years, which is a race is growing in stature a lot, and it attracts you know, a lot of the, well, it attracts all the big teams because of its standing on the UCI calendar, and the riders that go there, like we have some, you know, in the past we have some, you know, big names winning it. So, you know, that is always good for cycling. When you have a big national tour, it helps a lot. The cycling there, younger generations see that. They see the big teams, the big riders coming there each year, and it helps, you know, to get more and more younger into the cycling and into the competitive end of it, because that's something I think in some countries cycling is big, leisure cycling, but actually, you know, the competition end of it is not as big as the big cycling nations at all. So to have a race on soil in your home country, it's always good for the competition end of it, for the younger kids coming up, something for to look up to, because we know with soccer, for example, you know, we see so much of it, and biking is a sport where in some countries we don't have the events as much.
Well, Poland as well really is down the menu, because we have soccer, as you mentioned, but volleyball is the national sport in Poland, believe it or not. A lot of that as well, both the indoor and the beach game, huge over in Poland. Massive full crowds in the indoor arenas. So for cycling to be doing so well, and as Sean mentioned, Tour of Poland has been a fantastic event in the last few years. Good to see Majka and the likes hoping to give their public something to shout about on what is a very special arrival for them. 44 Ks to go. Back with the breakaway. Haven't seen too much of them in the last few minutes. In the way in which it's going, their advantage not looking important. Motivation is the big thing here. Talked about how they are kept motivated. To be in a breakaway of this nature, Sean, you really have to be a fantastically self-assured and self-motivated rider as well. It's not just what you're told to do by the team, because this is a hard job riding out here on your own, certainly on this terrain.
Yes, and you know, when you're out there for, you know, kilometre after kilometre, hour after hour, you know, the motivation, you start to lose it, and you know, you realise at a point, you know, the breakaway is not going to succeed. And right from the beginning today, you could expect that, because you look at the situation of the race leadership. It was going to be always controlled by Ulrike Greenedge to an extent, and when you get away in a small group like this as well, it is going to be a long, hard day with 4 riders. If you had 10 or 12 riders, well, then you're putting on the front, and we see here the riders change. You know, the rider he ride in the front, as we can see here, you know, and then you just pull off and another rider takes over. Your turn comes around very quickly with 4, but if you have 10, 12 riders, well, then you get a much bigger rest period, and that helps over many hours. And you know, for that reason, motivation here, it just it definitely goes down. And the director sportif, they just try and keep coming up. As we see the team car, they come along and they say, oh, keep on going, good job. You know, you just say, well, you're getting good exposure for the team, this is great, we're getting air time here, and all sorts of, you know, motivation. They just keep on pushing the riders and try and keep them out here as long as possible. And they're riding along here, they're not giving it 100%, but they're getting, you know, valuable exposure for their sponsors. Exposure
to a huge domestic and international audience. Domestic, given the fact that most of the sponsors are Italian out there in the front at the moment. Again, as we said in the lead up to this stage, that Giro d'Italia is an event that gets the whole of Italy interested, whether you're a cycling fan or not. It's all about the geography of the event, the drama that's played out there every day on its roads, and of course the importance in history to the race. Average race speed has gone down a little again in the last hour. They've slowed down ever so slightly. We saw that feed zone, we saw the gap being allowed to go out to around 6.5 minutes again. 39.1 kilometres per hour is the average speed after 5 hours of racing. Katusha and Evans were just making their way up on the right-hand side. In the meantime, the jerseys making their way to the finish line. Daily occurrence for those watching against the barriers. Breaker on the left-hand side. Bandiera just coming through. Again, a few more spots of rain. Those rain jackets come out once more. Yes, we're going a little further north, but province of Caserta, not one that does get too much rain at this time during the year in May. Most of it's cleared off by now from winter. On our way into Lazio today. I'm not talking about the football team. Lazio, the name of the province where Rome, the Italian capital, is. A few teams just starting to contribute different men now. Starting to see a little bit, not quite a fight, but a few more relays, a few more teams waking up, getting interested. We've seen BMC, and now, Sean, we're seeing the Katusha team of Joaquim Rodriguez. He will really want to show something here.
Yes, well, we see him yesterday. They really did a good job for him yesterday. A little bit, maybe in the end, they ran out of power. One man short in the final, maybe a couple of 100 metres, and some riders like to roll it on a bit, because this has been, you know, such a slow day. Although slow 39.1 for the breakaway, you must remember that the 4 riders are out there, and if I could go on a club run for 100k and do 39 of an average, I'd be quite happy with that. So you have to, you know, to take that into consideration. These guys are riding quite strong here, and into a little bit of a headwind as well for most of the day. But we see Katusha now, and there is riders, when you ride along slow all day, the legs start getting heavy, and it's not the best way to go on to a climb, a finishing climb of the day. So some of the teams will start pushing on a bit. If their leader, you know, needs that to be done, well, then that's what they're doing. And Katusha at the moment has seen that, you know, they are starting to up things a bit, and I think there will be more teams wanting to do that, because most of the riders would not like just to roll onto the climb at a very slow pace as we have been doing, or the, let's call it the pace that they've been going along all day. They'd like to up it a bit and, you know, get up to 55, 60 kilometres an hour at times, and get the legs turning a bit better. Astana with Michele Scarponi.
Bonoborzic on the right-hand side doing a bit of riding. Another good classic season from him, the Slovenian. And hello to a Megaformer Quick-Step for the first time today. They've kept themselves nice and hidden away from our cameras. Rigoberto Urán at the end of yesterday's stage said he was very, very pleased with how it went. First with Brambilla having a great go for his team to try and get the team victory. But of course, when that came back together, his team did well. They put him in a good position. He was just a little disappointed that finishing fourth, he missed out on the big bonus seconds at the line himself. But happy with how he's feeling. Of course, we saw the first little signs of form for him at the end of the Tour de Romandie when he put in a good time trial. Still remains alongside Evans, best placed of the big men. I wonder how BMC and Evans are feeling, you know, today. A lot of people, certainly our Australian friends watching down under, and again, good evening, good morning, whatever it is now to you. Thanks for staying up and thanks for staying with us. Gap at 3 minutes 10, Evans and BMC. We mentioned briefly yesterday, Sean, that if you take the jersey now and you want to keep it with a serious contender all the way to the end, it is a long, hard job to do. If you're Cadel Evans, taking the jersey now, too early for him, or is it any time a good time to take the leader's jersey?
Well, I think it's too early, but again, you know, sometimes you don't have choice in that, depending on what way the race is in the end, and if you're in the very final kilometres here, and you're feeling good, and you know, some road riders are attacking, you follow the guys, and you find yourself in a position where you can win the stage, take bonuses and move into race leadership, and it's very hard to hold off as a bike rider. You know, you have all the calculations before you set out, team briefing and that, and the director might say, okay, it's very early to take any lead here in this race, so try and hold off of that. But when you're up there and the adrenaline is flowing, it's a difficult thing to do, and I'd not be surprised. As we've seen BMC yesterday, they did a real good job as well with Cadel Evans. They kept them very much at the front. You know, they have a good team here, and I think they will be able to do the same today. And the way Cadel was performing yesterday, you know, we could see a change there, and it's possible that we would see him in pink jersey this evening.
Well, it could be the continuation of a trend that was set last year by Chris Horner. We had the oldest winner of the Vuelta on a Grand Tour. We could have the oldest winner of the Giro d'Italia this year. That would go to Evans, Basso, even Joaquim Rodriguez. They're all with the oldest. Midnight 30, by the way, on the east coast of Australia. So not as late as we thought it might be. Good evening to you nonetheless. Thanks for joining us as usual. Can Orica Greeners do something for you today? Can it be Cadel Evans? I know that you're as fanatical as ever for your Australian cyclists.
Can it be an Australian?
.4 k's to go. The rain falling. It's been a daily occurrence on the Giro d'Italia so far. And Bernard Eisel away from the front of the race. As soon as that happens, Sean, the situation changes, teams come to the front, and there's nobody really taking over the bossing of the peloton.
No, we see now that it's a number of teams who want to take control, and we're coming to that point, and hopefully they will start pushing on. The sooner the better, because with 38 kilometres to go, we need a little bit more action, and it looks like it's starting to heat up here slowly on the front, and we definitely need that after a long day, which the peloton has just been, you know, controlling things, leaving the brake hang out there all day. But we could have, you know, written that script already days, weeks ago. When you look at this stage, you would say it's a bit of a transition stage, and that's what it's turned out to be, as yesterday was, but not as much. And unfortunately, you know, there's not a few hills thrown in. If we had a few climbs thrown in with, you know, maybe a little bit of a technical descent, well, then it would have made the race a bit more nervous. But unfortunately, only the first GP classement, which was in the early part of the stage, and nothing really serious. Totally flat today, and you know, a pretty difficult day for everybody, for the riders as well, just to keep motivated here and just to get through this stage.
Well, the Giro has the reputation of being the hardest Grand Tour of the lot in terms of mountain stages and everything like that. When this route was presented, the organisers presented it to the riders with a tagline of a more humane Giro d'Italia. This is one that we don't want you to do anything silly with. And you looked at the final week with certainly the 3 days before the last day into Trieste, and you think, there's nothing more humane about that. Mountain time trial to Monte Grappa, Monte Zoncolan back on the menu, Val Martello stage, albeit a short one, with all of that climbing packed in, Gavia, Stelvio, lots of climbing. I think what they meant, Sean, is looking at this first week, there's a lot less of those little hills that they usually just throw in on the intermediate stages, where you get sometimes some early gaps developing.
Yes, I think they were talking about the entrée was a bit easier, but the final week is certainly not. Main course, it's a very, very difficult one, and majorly difficult. And the weather conditions as well, you know, if we keep on getting these wet conditions, and as we go further north, if we get the cold conditions, well, then that will make it so much more difficult on the riders. If we had a good conditions to start, good for bike racing, let's call it, weather-wise, well then, you know, it would be a relatively easy start for everybody. And the way they're riding as well, sometimes in a big tour, it's very aggressive, and they race, you know, much more aggressively, even on the long stages, the flat stages like we've had today. But when you get into that rhythm, sometimes it could go on for a long time, and until you get into the real serious stuff, no really aggressive racing at all. But the weather conditions will have a huge bearing, and as we see last year, hopefully we don't see anything like that. But if that is the case, well, then it's going to be a very, very difficult race with the very challenging final week.
Marzano Alto. Cameron Meyer there, just making sure his race number stays on. Adjustment of the brakes as well. Back with the brake. 3 minutes is the gap. Had word that it had gone down to 3 minutes and 10. And it continues to come down. That fight for positioning. Final climb, remember, is just over 8 kilometres long. 8.5 when they get to the town of Cassino. And it really does ramp up after that. Cassino is still at just 41 metres above sea level. We climb up to 484 at MONTECASSINO. Famous abbey that looks over the town. Not quite into Lazio yet, still in the Campania region, famous for its pizza and its mozzarella. Original mozzarella, the original mozzarella is from around here.
Mozzarella de buffalo.
Exactly, exactly. Go down the world to Naples and you find the proper pizzas. I remember once commentating the stage just around the corner here, as we see Martin Cialinghi putting on his rain jacket.
Surprised to see Cialinghi putting on the raincoat, because he is one of the hard men, and putting on the raincoat at this point, it looks like that it must be a little bit cool, because normally when you get inside, you know, the final 40 kilometres, 35 kilometres, you'll not be put on the raincoat unless you're feeling a little bit cool. And Cialinghi is the one who was surprising. We haven't seen him in the breakaway since his great performance back on Irish soil. He was, you know, in the breakaway on both road stages. And maybe it's, I was going to say, a bit too warm for him here. The rain is not cold enough. But seeing him putting on the raincoat there, it's surprising at this point.
Talked about Australian supporters. Hello to everybody back home. Motorhomes and flags, that's something we'll see as we get towards the mountains. The Belgians will be about, as will those across the border from France. This is the scene at the finish line at the moment. The rain's still coming down, not as hard as it was around half an hour ago. MONTECASSINO waits, and a look at the final kilometre here. Does flatten out ever so slightly into a false flat in the last few hundred metres, but again, it's still an uphill gradient. Maximum gradient for the 8.5 kilometre climb is at 10%, the average at 5%. And this is the area where it flattens out ever so slightly. Narrow-ish road. Certainly not the most narrow we've seen on a finish of a Giro d'Italia, though. And they're coming around very quickly for those watching in the grandstand. The Abbey in the background. It is a spectacular sight. And the arrival coming as the racing is on now. 34.3 kilometres, pardon me. That's all that remains. Zardini on the left in the light green, the Italian. Fedi in the luminous yellow and the black rain jacket, Rodolfo Torres, Colombian. And in the white, classics man from Androni, Marco Bandiera. Bandiera, whose last name does mean flag, by the way. We were talking about all of those Belgian flags and the caravans we can expect on the corners. I'm sure Didi the Devil will be up there as well, screaming at the cameras for us. Orica Green Edge coming back to ride on the front now. Cameron Meyer doing that. Ivan Santoromita, the Italian champion, just behind him. Peloton closing this gap, doing it fairly slowly. Again, they really have to calculate very well, because if it were to come back together before the climb again, you get all sorts of chaos.
Well, I think they were not going to do that today. They were leaving the break, you know, go a long ways out. And when you look at the advantage, went out, you know, at 58 kilometres, it was almost 6 minutes or a bit under it. It's a nice advantage, but again, they make the calculation, you know, big straight road, a bit of a headwind, 4 riders out in front. They're going to come back, you know, so easily, and that's what's happening here. You know, the moment the peloton starts just to up the pace a little bit with a number of teams, that gap comes down very, very quickly. And we can see here, we're talking about a flat terrain. In the peloton, it's flat because when you're sitting there, you just get carried along. But when you're in the breakaway, it just floats up and down a bit. And in a 4-man group with a little bit of a headwind, you know, it does start to hurt a bit. And these guys are really hurting for a long time. I think, you know, they're just struggling here to keep just changing the pace setting on the front, and it's a big mental battle to just keep on going.
Okay, we talked about that self-determination that you have. Arashiro at the front again. Lampre coming to the left. Can Diego Lisi repeat the feat as the gap goes down to 2:42? The Megaformer quick step had to go with Gianluca Brambilla. Plenty of options as well as their leader Uran. There's Danilo Hondo. It's been a big day for the ruler today. Time to stretch out in the meantime for Elia Viviani. He'll be thinking about tomorrow. He has got the red points jersey underneath that green rain jacket. Thomas Decker right at the back. He's been at the back every time we've seen him so far in this Giro d'Italia. Dutch rider riding for Garmin, and of course problems in Garmin very much understandable. They had a horrific start to this Giro, losing their leader just after a few pedal strokes. Zardini tasted victory very, very, very recently. Talked about that stage in San Giacomo in Trentino. Bandiera, Torres and Fedi not having taken too many wins. There's Luca Scinto giving out the bottle in conversation. And Cadel Evans, still dressed in his raincoat. Got to get ready for action soon. And he will be ready for action. He will want something today. In conversation with his team. Ushering the motorbike out the way. A little bit of a draft while he can. And Evans is going to make his way up that left-hand side. Wants to be close to the front, and you can see why, Sean, because he's right at the back of the peloton. If there's to be any lazy sort of spillage, then he gets caught up in it.
Yes, well, that would be the concern, that, you know, there could be a crash at any moment. But again, the weight is riding along from the race point of view. There's no problem at the moment, still with over 30 kilometres to go. You know, quite large road, headwind, so to move up to the front is not going to be a problem. It's just the concern is that, you know, the good riders not concentrating here, and we could see some crashes before we get to the final climb of the day.
Final climb of the day. Who will have a go? Who will have a crack? GC riders likely to watch each other. A couple of Juventus fans down there waving the flag. Italian national pride on show. We're wondering which riders might have a go. We've talked about a few. We've talked about Ulissi, who'll be wanting to double up if he can. On-stage win is already a success for him on the Giro d'Italia, certainly given his 24 years of age. Rigoberto Urán certainly had a try yesterday. Cadel Evans we saw there, Joaquim Rodriguez. Quintana keeping himself quiet for the moment. Don't think he was too disappointed not to be involved in the race to the line yesterday. He was there or thereabouts, though, finishing in the group. 2 minutes 27 is the gap at the minute. Trek doing a heck of a lot of riding on the front today. Their leader is Julian Arredondo. We caught up with him. He says he wants to have a go again today.
Julian, una prestación excelente ayer.
Well, Julian, you had a beautiful performance yesterday, really excellent. Today for you again? Well, yeah, I had a go yesterday. It gave me confidence for today's stage, so I think I'll try again, and I hope that I can get the win. So, confident, not hiding his cards, not keeping them close to his chest. Michele Scarponi, well, he'll just battle on, I'm sure, and if, as he always does, get a chance, he'll look to take it. Nico Roach, we saw have a go. But that's the news from Arredondo. And the thing is, Sean, if he does have a go, because he's in with a bunch of big favourites, then surely they're going to have to follow him.
Well, I think he might be be allowed a little bit of room up from the big favourites. They will be saying, well, the time trial he's going to, you know, lose a lot, and we can give him some advantage here. But again, where can he have a go? If he waits to the final kilometre, it does get a bit easier. We see that on the run in there, and that's not where he can create the advantage. So he has to go before that, a number of kilometres out, and if he does, then they'll be saying, well, you know, at this point, 2-3 kilometres from the finish, it's a long ways. If you allow a guy to go away, he could pull out, you know, quite a big advantage then. So I think they will be again the marking. But if there's a team who can, you know, take control, Katusha yesterday, they set a very strong pace, and it was so difficult for anybody to attack. If we see that happening again today, well, then the type of climate is, I think, is going to be difficult for anybody to go away. Considering the final kilometre, you know, flattens out quite a bit.
Anybody jumping out as a big favourite for you, putting you on the spot with 30 k's to go?
Well, I think Rodriguez is the one again. You know, he will be relying on the team if they can keep a strong pace and take him to that couple of 100 metres. Even though the percentage eases off a lot, he is very explosive, and I think he's going to come better every day in this race, because we must remember he had that bad crash in the Amstel Gold and he was suffering for a long time, and I think yesterday was the first signs that he's starting to get back to he's normal again. But there's a lot of riders in there that we could see, you know, still putting in a performance here. I think it's possible, you know, there's 10 or 12 riders you could say could, you know, take victory today.
Lots of opportunities and lots of things could happen. Lampre taking the win yesterday. Rain jackets out of the way, getting past pack. Niemetz ready for action. Kunigo just behind him as well. Tinkoff Saxo. Will they have a go with Nico Roach? CJ Sutton at the back now. He'll just be riding in. Done his job today. And we may find out why Sky did so much riding early on. Jan Polans, another Polish rider in the Lampre team, 107. Orica Green Edge on the left-hand side. Cannondale there too. Sonny Colbrelli trying to make his way back on, as though he's had a mechanical problem. A little bit of assistance from Europe Car. Doctor's car in front as well. Colbrelli, one of those riders really to watch for Bardiani. Exciting, combative rider. Teams doing a lot of placement work at the minute, trying to get their main men into position. At the moment the gap continues to fall. Between 2 and 3 minutes the last check. Bandiera, Torres, Zardini and Fedi still out there. There is the aforementioned Andrea Fedi. Shots for the morning papers being taken. I think the main shot will be that of whoever crosses the line. Just being told the gap has gone below 2 minutes. 1 minute and 52 seconds. Pink jersey of Michael Matthews is in there. Peloton playing the waiting game. There is no need to pull this back in yet. Climb begins at 8.5 kilometres to go. Alexandre Geniez stopping on the right-hand side. Conversations about that gap. It's the thing with race radio being used as well. Everybody, more or less all of the time, Sean, is informed as to the race situation. There's no guessing work going on.
No, there's being well informed on the riders there. We can see they're just having a chat up front, and we see Daniel Honda there has been on the front for quite a while. The surprising thing is we could see that on the last shot we had in the peloton, we could see riders putting on the raincoats again. And you know, when you get to the point inside the 30 kilometres to go, surprising with the temperatures we were talking about earlier on today. You know, the temperatures were quite good, but riders seem to be getting a little bit cold there, and going for the raincoat at this moment is not something you would normally see. So it tells that the temperatures maybe have dropped a little bit, or the riders are just getting a bit colder. And when you're out there for a long time, you know, they have got some rain shower today, you get wet through, and you know, the hours, many hours out there, the body starts to get cold, and it seems to be the case that there's a number of riders feeling a little bit cold and getting into the raincoats at a very late stage.
1 minute 30 now, the latest gap. It really is coming down. The problem is that the Peloton doesn't want it to come down. Chris Sutton's still feeling his knee injury. In fact, holding his left thigh as well. Really hasn't gone well for him in that respect this year. It's amazing that he's back on the road, and the Giro recovered very, very quickly from was very horrible indeed knee injury early in the season. It's the longest day of the Giro. One of the more nervous days, I think, when we get to the finale as well. It's that sense that we don't quite know what's going to happen in terms of who is going to contest it. View down from one of the many monuments commemorating all that's happened here, certainly 70 years ago. Battle of MONTECASSINO, just 25 kilometres away from where we are at the moment. The reason the battle was here, it's in a geographical area of huge strategic importance. Apennines to one side and gateway to eastern Italy. And of course, the vicinity of Rome as well as the Italian capital. 1 minute and 10 seconds now. Really is coming down as they're on a slight uphill section of the race, and you could just see there was a slight upping of pace, Sean, in the breakaway there as we started a climb, and there was an opportunity to get out there. 25 k's to go. Inside the final 25 kilometres on this stage of the Giro d'Italia. It's stage 6 today, and we're going to MONTECASSINO. Started off in SASSANO, village of just 5,000 people, on our way to the Abbey of MONTECASSINO. You called it, Sean. A few people feeling the cold, including Bernie Eisel.
Yes, you could see that the riders were just wrapping up a bit, and you can see Eisel there. He's shown that it is a little bit cooler. The four riders out in front, we can see they're just continuing to work away, but the gap is coming down, and the bunch here just upping the pace so slightly, and that gap is, you know, melting down very quickly, and still with 24 kilometres to go. It's one of those long days in Giro, and I think the riders will be happy this evening when they have this one over with.
Colombia with Miguel Angel Rubiano. He's in the Colombian national champions jersey. It's a tight fit. Either that or he's been on the pizza already since we got here. Thomas Dekker again out the back. And all of those rain jackets, almost to a man, on the riders, really. All by the Colombians. They must be up to something. .9 k's to go. 1 minute and 21, the latest gap. It's funny how much in the last 5 to 10 kilometres that the gap really has started to tumble. Is that more a sign that the breakaway are running out of energy, Sean, given it's such a long stage? Remember, they've been out there in the break for over 200 kilometres now. They went at kilometre 9 today.
Yes, well, almost 225 plus kilometres, and it's normal they're running out of energy. But I think, you know, they're making the calculations well with an uphill finish. Unless you have 4 or 5 minutes at this point, well, then you're going to lose it so much on the climb itself. And when you're out there for that distance, they are going to run out of energy. So when you hit the climb, they are going to struggle big time, and they're just hanging out there. That's all they can do, and you know, they're certainly doing their best. Stay out as long as possible, get as much out of the day as they can, and as we can see here, the bunch is just, you know, just closing down on them ever so slowly.
Not particularly interested spectators. They'll be trying to peer over the hedges when we get to the climb, though. Plenty of action to come on the Giro d'Italia. Certainly is a backloaded Giro d'Italia this year, as you're explaining. The trade-off with the organisers, really, with the riders as well. I think some of that may have to do with the fact that we were taking the Giro so far away from Italy as well to, well, the first time we've gone off continental Europe, off the continent, staying in Europe still, of course, but being on the island of Ireland. And this is the story at the finish line. Brollies are up again, raincoats on. It's a familiar story after 6 hours of racing. .22 k's to go, and it's coming down fairly hard at the minute. Luckily, out on the race, it's staying dry for the moment. Be nice if it were just a shower and it could come through, but whatever is going to happen, Sean, we're already going to have wet roads on the way up to MONTECASSINO.
Yes, it looks highly that we're going to have a wet finish once again. The uphill is not going to be a problem. They don't have to make any descent, which we had yesterday, and I think yesterday was, you know, very nervous times when they had to make that descent to come around to the finish and climb up to the finish line once again. Here it's uphill all the way, so it's going to make that much more safer. And you can see, you know, for that reason as well, there's no urgency in the peloton. If we had a climb beforehand and a descent, I think there'd be, you know, much more action on the front of the bunch for quite a long time already.
More or less the same speed as we had an hour ago. Slight upping, 39.228 kilometres per hour. Was at 39.1 for the average then. And we're on long straight drags here. And the thing is, in a very short time, the break are going to be in sight of the peloton.
Yes, and with the roads we've been on, you know, long straights, big open roads, are going to see them from a long ways out, and I don't think it's going to change a lot here, because the way it's been going for a long time, you know, the brake has just been left out there, and they'll try and hold back as long as possible. But again, as we get closer to the climb, you know, there will be that movement on the front of the bunch, and when that happens, this brake will just melt down so quickly.
Well, how does the climb look? It starts off with a very slow gradient, goes up quickly to 6%, then starts levelling out again. Maximum short bits of 10% also inside the first 1.5 kilometres. An easier section after 3 kilometres before it goes up again, and then a gradient easing out inside the last kilometre. 1 minute and 14. Advantage allowed to grow by a meagre 4 seconds again. Trek still at the centre of your screen, riding. You know why they have been riding. they want to win today. Julian Arredondo has said that it is a race for him. Of course, at this time of the year, in the last couple of years, he's been used to riding the Tour of California. And just a reminder that you can watch the Tour of California every evening here on Eurosport. Matt Stevens and Brian Smith talking you through the action again, starting from tonight. Jussi Vaikkonen at the back, number 89 in his Finnish national champions jersey. Rider for Française des Jeux, road captain for the team. 20 kilometres to go. Marco Bandiera leads them through the banner in the white. Italian rider. Just behind him, Edoardo Zardini. The young riders in a team that is full of young riders, Bardiani. Just two riders, in fact, over 25, Stefano Pirazzi and Marco Canola. We've seen Rodolfo Torres as well, 7 minutes and 5 seconds behind on the overall, and young Andrea Fedi. Little scoot forward from the Trek rider coming after putting the gilet on. Almost getting caught out in that car park. A few people asking about Arashiro's pink bike. Not the leader of the Giro d'Italia. Trying to rival Michael Matthews' bling. Arashiro with the Italian flag painted on there as well. But he is the Japanese national champion. Already having lost 12 minutes and 34 seconds as well. He's a man to look out for on a hilly stage later on in the Giro d'Italia. I'm sure he will have a chance to have a go. He's been close to victory before at the Giro. BMC on the left. American stroke Swiss team with Australian leader. Into one of the green zones at this year's Giro d'Italia. There have been a few green zones set up by one of the sponsors, one of the bottle makers. It's one of the areas where riders are encouraged to throw away their bottles because it's guaranteed to be cleaned up and used second-hand or given to fans. Nice initiative, certainly valid environmental concerns about the throwing away of stuff at bike races. We race through this beautiful countryside, we enjoy showing it off to you. We don't want to ruin it. .8 Ks to go. Still they keep it going. How long can they stay out there for? Inside the final 20 kilometres now. 18.5 to go for the break. Around one of these big wide open road roundabouts they come. It's been mostly ridden on flat roads today, traditional stage, all the way through the Campania region. We came up this morning from Basilicata. And today finishing in Lazio, region where the Italian capital is. Province of Frosinone will see the finish, and the town of Cassino at its abbey just on the hill. Montecassino, the scene of that historical battle back in World War II, 70 years on, and its first Giro d'Italia finish. 18 Ks. No race change really, Sean, is there? It's exactly how we thought it would be once we saw the situation on the road today, with the smaller teams up the front attacking the race, getting the exposure. A lot of riders taking different routes around the roundabouts, almost knocking out the man with a red flag there, thankfully not. But we're looking at the peloton, they're ready. Look, the gap is down to below a minute now, and it's exactly as the favourites would have wanted it, isn't it?
Yes, exactly as the favourites and the favourite teams would like it to get onto the climb. No really extra aggressive racing today at all, and just, you know, slowly up the pace onto the climb, and then that, you know, fight it out on the climb. If there's a stage victory to play for, we'll have a go for that. But the main thing for the general classification men is at this point in the race, keeping in the position where you need to be, close to the other big favourites, and take no major risks, and they'll be all happy with that. And you know, we talked about this stage. This was going to be a long stage, a breakaway being allowed out there, but never going to be allowed with the advantage that they could go on. And you know, there's still in the race, there's a lot of riders you know, in a position where there becomes danger. Although today, you know, this breakaway was a good one. 4:53 was the best man, Zardini, but again, with the Ulrike Green Edge wanting to control the situation, and then other teams wanting to, you know, take control first, have a go for stage victory, never going to happen for the breakaway.
Who's dodging the bikes there was our friend with the flag. Steps to one side, steps to the right, shuffles about, practicing his dance moves whilst he keeps everybody safe. 16.6 Ks. All that remains of stage 6 of this Giro d'Italia, the Tour of Italy, 97th edition of this historic race, and a race that really has told the story of its host country year after year. 48 seconds for the break now. Young Edoardo Zardini rides on and through, takes his turn on the front. The roads are wet, it is raining again, but no time to put on these rain jackets. In fact, the favourites are going to have to get rid of their suit. Marco Bandiera, handshake for everybody. Nice to see. Breakaway companions, and just for 5 hours, a little bond formed between them.
And they will sleep well tonight.
They certainly will. If they've problems sleeping, there's something wrong, isn't there, after all that? It's the getting up in the morning part that'll be the worrying bit. BMC of one of the race favourites, Evans. There he is, ready to go, no rain jacket on. Number 51 showing. 155 in the centre wearing the pink jersey, Michael Matthews. In a word, Sean, can he defend that pink jersey here?
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a difficult one, but again, you know, he is on the form to do that. We've seen yesterday, and you have to look at yesterday's performance of the general classification men. The guys who were up there for the stage victory, they're all going to be very much there in contention today for both of those classements.
46 seconds. His own way of saying hello to those at home and his moments of fame for Zardini. 15.3 Ks. The climb, the final climb, begins at Cassino itself. Town of 33,000 people. Town that is well visited for the aforementioned reasons. It's a place of pilgrimage, a place of remembrance. And of course, there is that spectacular scenery around as well. Do hope that the clouds haven't filled in and we can see things today. Hairpin after hairpin, the look down to the town from the Abbey. The ruins of the Abbey above the finish line as well. Really hope we can show them to you. Well, the crowd out here on the road, they're going to be jumping inside, getting the tellies on and watching the finale. There'll be more than an ear or two to the radio as well. BMC on the left in the red and black. It's Tinkoff Saxo in yellow and blue riding for Nicholas Roach. Europcar are in there as well. They want to do something for a stage win, perhaps. Trek right in the middle in their black and white. Julian Arredondo, the object of their work today. Orica Green Edge looking after Michael Matthews, attempting to try and keep that jersey. And if the Michael Matthews plan fails, Sean, I'm looking down their team list, and Peter Vening's not too far off with a chance to go out. It certainly might suit him with a little attack towards the end.
Yes, well, he will be capable of going in the attack, but I don't think that will be the tactic. I think Peter Venig will be there to help out Michael Matthews and stay as long as possible with him, and if there's a need to ride at any moment, if he's capable of doing that, that will be the role. And then Matthews will just follow the other big favourites and just stay in contention. And of course, Matthews, if he gets to the finish, he has that edge with the sprint. He's, you know, a very good sprinter, so that's where he can maybe just get a stage victory if he comes into the finish, the final 200 metres in a good position.
14.1 kilometres remain on the way to Montecassino. Many of you watching have links, family links to this area in Italy. Special, not always for all the right reasons. But this happened 70 years ago now. And this is a wonderful way to remember all those who lost their lives. Again, if those who were present then could see this now, this is a very special, very, very special arrival. 27 seconds now. Bandiera and Torres alongside Fedi and Zardini. We've already seen the handshake. They know their fate. They know that as soon as the road kicks up here, even before perhaps, that advantage, well, slim advantage of 27 seconds is going to disappear very quickly.
And the neutral service car, when you see that going by, going out ahead, well then you know it's pretty much game over for your breakaway.
Yes, any gap of less than 30 seconds. The bikes are told to get out the way. And as you can see, just look at the shots on. Photographers on the right-hand side with the yellow helmets, speeding up the road. They will be being screamed at on race radio not to be in the way once the junction is made. Another motorbike, this time the police motorbike is told to get out the way. It's another job that we don't really see or hear about too much, but a vitally important job in terms of controlling the security of the race.
Yes, well, of course, we could see that the police motorbike was ahead of the peloton there, but then they're catching up to the breakaway, so he has to move ahead of the breakaway, and also the photographers, they will be moved on. As you get onto the climb as well, everybody will be pushed on, especially when the junction is being made from the breakaway being caught by the bunch. All the photographers will be pushed on, and this finish as well, we have seen in some of the in the route book, they were giving special passes to go up the mountain because it's quite a narrow place, and you know, the parking here at the finish is not great either, so there's only allowing a certain number of cars to go to this finish.
Well, all the riders we expect will just bike it back down to the town where the team bus is, and luckily for some, I think there are about 5 or 6 teams staying in Cassino itself this evening. And I think those out in the breakaway, unfortunately for them, may well be last to the line tonight. The break is done, the break is over. A Megaphon, a quick step on the right. The Belgian team riding in the black and white alongside BMC in the black and red, making the junction. It's been a long break, a very long break. Congratulations to Bandiera, Zardini, Torres and Fedi. Their work is done though, the race is on now, and this is the race into the final climb coming up in 3 kilometres time. The pace as soon as that junction was made, noticeably picking up.
Yes, you could see that just as they were making the junction, they just started to really push on here, and it's going to be the case now as we're within a number of kilometres to the climb. And we can see up front, you know, the teams that are trying to get their leaders onto the climb in a good position are really up on the pace. Concern now is that everybody get onto the climb safely.
Oh, we've had a rider down, 3 riders down. Astana again, that is a horrible one. Sky rider coming, Cannondale with a rider down as well. It was caught a little further up the road, and we have a couple of riders who are really hurt here. Garmin again involved. Oh, and it's happened further up the road. This is absolute decimation of the peloton. Just as everybody was getting ready to race, we are seeing riders all over the place. Paolo Tiralongo, the biggest name we can see down there at the moment for Astana. We have seen riders from all over the place on the ground. That is Tyler Farah, riding for Sky as well, Konstantin Sitsov. And we have more problems. Farah looks as though he's hurt here.
Yes, and we could see Henyo from Team Sky also there down. So just this approach to the roundabout again, a little bit of a tighten up, and down they go.
Gianpaolo Caruso is the Katusha rider down, looking very, very hurt indeed. Can't quite see who the Astana rider is. It looked as though from the back it could be Gasparotto, but of course with a helmet on we don't know. I'm afraid that Gianpaolo Caruso though looks very, very hurt. Andrea Amador is on the ground for Movistar. In the meantime, the race is continuing up the road for Miyuki Beppu's been down as well. Who is there? What's left? Unfortunately, Sean, I think, depending on who's down, this could have a huge effect on the general.
Yes, well, we can see here there's a very small group. Michael Matthews up here in front with BMC pushing on the pace, and a big split, a group of, what, 15, 18 riders, and then a big gap back to the next group, and this has totally split the main bunch apart.
Totally split the main bunch apart. I'm going to guess at Janez Brajkovic there. In the meantime, we have Paolo Tiralongo just checking how Gianpaolo Caruso is, looking visibly worried. We're very worried because that looks absolutely horrible. Gianpaolo Caruso not really moving. It'd be very nice, I think, if we could get the cameras out the way now. Chaos on the roads going into Montecassino. Absolute chaos. Purito Rodriguez in the meantime is in the leading group, we're being told. Caruso in visible discomfort. Desperate for the ambulances and the doctors to arrive. It's taking a long time here, Sean.
Yes, totally. Total confusion here, and we can see here just cars still trying to get by, and of course the cavalcade just as the junction was being made, of course, and yeah, all the team cars has to get by. It's taking a long time for the ambulance to get through here.
Very worrying. The rider we saw down a minute ago, by the way, was Janez Brajkovic. He was the Astana rider, but the immediate concern here is for both Brajkovic, whose helmet is off and looks as though he's going to struggle to continue, and Gianpaolo Caruso, I would say, is definitely out of the Giro d'Italia, but that is the least of our worries at the moment, and certainly the least of his and his team's. Evans in the red and black there. Matthews going to come round him, and I think, Sean, it was always going to be the case that if Matthews held the wheel, he was going to take the win.
Yes, I think when we see there in the final kilometre, 800 metres, Cat Evans pushing it on, wanted to take as much time as possible, and with Michael Matthews in the wheel, you know, the sprint he's got, he was going to take it, and just slips up the inside of Cat Evans and wins comfortably.
Good win for Michael Matthews, his first of this Giro d'Italia. First of an individual nature, of course. Took the team time trial and the pink jersey. This is the view of Montecassino. And these are the stage results. Michael Matthews, Tim Wellens, Cadel Evans, Fraboltini's Santa Romita. Santa Romita losing 13 seconds, but look at all these seconds. We did not expect differences like this today. Morabito, Kelderman riding well for Belkin. Finetto, Olisi and Duarte. 49 separating first and 10th. There's a lot of these images, I'm afraid. Team doctors are going to be working overtime tonight. There's Cunego giving his reactions to the national broadcaster. Scarponi losing 1 minute 45, we're being told by our producers. And we know that Joaquim Rodriguez will have lost even more.